little love. This love when I wanna get another one, I go take and do waiting I love, waiting you love, oh. No be waiting I love, oh. Waiting I love, I go do what we done right, oh. Go no be vodka, Mr. Money Changer, but when I know I know the ways that Mr.
You let a yum 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 yum. Nayela pere, mate nayela pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Nayela pere, muna kapela, chora kakisa, bayari yela pere, balungana baire.
That dream of studying and working abroad has been made much accessible to everyone, including you. So worry less about how you're going to get there, because we always make it happen. This is StepFinders Ghana Limited. We offer a highly professional guidance and support system, both in your university and visa application process. StepFinders Ghana Limited is a highly trusted agency of the University of the West of Scotland, one of the largest modern universities offering a range of academic, social, and sporting facilities. You can apply for undergraduate, master's and PhD in business and creative industries, education, social sciences, computing, engineering, physical sciences, health, and life sciences. Come through StepFinders, and for your studies, you get yourself a laptop or a £500 gift voucher. Call on +233 598 4888 04. WhatsApp on +44 7404 711 049. Send us an email or visit our website for more information.
Well, yeah, it's yet another Saturday afternoon, and we are here with Political Justice. We're reaching you from the diaspora. We all belong to all these high school WhatsApp platforms, and occasionally we have banters with our friends back home. And I remember a couple of days ago, there was a conversation on my high school WhatsApp platform, and one guy made a comment to the effect that we, those in the diaspora, do not seem to care about what's happening in Ghana because we're not feeling the hardship. And one of my colleagues took it personally and sort of retorted, saying that what happens in Ghana affects us in the diaspora. I always say being in the diaspora is not an escape. We are so connected to happenings in Ghana that if there are hardship in Ghana, we are impacted by those hardships in so many different ways. And of course, the obvious is our pocketbook. And so I deem it a responsibility as well as a right as a Ghanaian citizen based abroad to comment on issues happening in Ghana, because we consider ourselves as a satellite office, right? We are intimately connected to Ghana, yet we are removed from her in a way that we can objectively analyze things happening in Ghana and then give our objective opinions about what's happening and perhaps proffer certain solutions to the problems that exist in our beloved homeland. And so this afternoon, that's exactly what we are here to do. We are here to talk about some of the pressing topical issues that are taking place in our country. And in fact, this week, the most topical is the outdooring of the vice presidential candidate of the opposition National Democratic Congress, in the person of Professor Nana Opoku Agyemang. So this afternoon, we would be analyzing the speech, looking at some of the key issues or the headlines that came out of the speech, so to speak. So, but before doing that, I would like to introduce my panelists for today's show. I have Dr. Nee Okine, who is an assistant professor of actuarial science at Appalachian State University in North Carolina. And then the Venerable Zita Seshi, a sociologist based out in Canada. So today I have two panelists, and then they would be leading the conversation on the main topical issue happening in Ghana right now, which is Prof's speech. So panelists, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what I'm supposed to be discussing on my birthday. Today I'm a year older. I should be drinking some more and just relaxing and looking back on my life. But it's good to be here. This is what we call being an adult. When you have responsibilities, you don't take time off because it's your birthday. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy today we are talking about a woman and a woman's capability. So it's a full circle for me.
Well, I didn't forget your birthday. I was going to wish you happy birthday, but so yeah. But anyway, happy birthday, Zita.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try and have a glass of wine in your name. Happy birthday.
Me, I thought you were going to say that. Give me your location, sweetheart. Let me say, come on.
Do her momo. Do her momo. That's the new thing in Ghana right now.
No, Zita don't need Momo. Zita needs to be celebrated.
I need Momo. How did you know? Ghana knows me so well. Like, I'm the queen of Momo. Like, once I touch in Ghana, I just say, guys, I'm in Ghana. Girls need Momo to survive. I need Momo. I have a Momo account because I have a Ghana card. So, yeah. Okay.
All right, guys. So, anyway, I will let our producer play as the videos. We have a couple of videos lined up from the speech, and then you play those videos, and then we would get into it.
Although that is important, it is not so much about returning a competent president back to power. It is not even about producing the first woman vice president. Historical and exciting though these are, it is not only about bringing the NDC back to power, although that is indispensable in our current circumstances. The elections ahead and winning them is about winning elections for a purpose. The purpose goes beyond those enumerated above. The purpose is the opportunity to heal our country again. It is about the opportunity to pull Ghana back from the precipice of destruction, of normalizing corruption, of incomprehensive greed, from deep despair. The election ahead and winning it for our party is about hard work and abiding sacrifice. It is to embrace everyone in building a Ghana that functions again. It is to work towards a Ghana where citizens have confidence and hope and are determined to regain their independence of thought and of agenda. We must work towards a Ghana that at the very least can feed itself. We know we can. In fact, today what do we hear? Is the promotion of ethnocentric elitism, which is masquerading as intellectualism. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is elitism masquerading as intellectualism. It is weakness strutting as courage, and crony capitalism masked as development in freedom. It is shameless hypocrisy pretending to be objective. These will never move our country forward. Rather, the most significant achievement of all these has been a country in near insolvency. Its natural resources such as water, land, and even the environment in rebellion. A people harassed and intimidated into numbness. And as some will say cynically, some of us also bribed into silence. Successes and share responsibility for our setbacks, if any. And at the time of reckoning, Your Excellency John Dramani Mahama, I will not, in the advancement of self-serving ambition, declare to the whole world that I was only the driver's mate.
You are on mute. You're on mute.
All right. So what I was saying was that I'll come back to the sort of the ending punchline of not characterizing herself as the driver's mate when the day of reckoning comes. But overall, let's talk about the speech. I mean, I love speeches, to be honest with you. I think that over the years, the power of a carefully constructed speech in politics has been devalued, right? But listening to prop speech, I think that that value that throughout history has been given to political speeches has been resurrected. I don't know what your opinions are, just quite generally about the quality of the speech before we go into its specifics. So Zita, you can take it before.
Sure. I mean, overall, I think it was a good speech. I mean, preparing, she touched on a number of things, and I'm glad we would come back to that. She touched on touched on gender issues and how, you know, women in businesses should be given more lines of credit and supported. She talked about the ethnocentric elitism, which I thought was extremely important. She talked about infrastructure. She touched on the 24-hour economy. You know, she touched on also holding past politicians accountable if they come into power, and it is not a threat, it is a promise, and it is also not an act of witch hunting. So I think overall, I would say the quality was good. She decided to encapsulate a lot of the things that we would expect her to touch on. And so I agree with you to say that solid presentation. One thing that I also particularly liked is the fact that I feel she's beginning to hone in on her strength as a female vice president, and so she's more assertive in her demeanor and bold in her demeanor. And so overall, I agree with you. Excellent speech. She touched on all the things that we want to hear as Ghanaians, from the education sector to accountability, to the economy, to infrastructure, and to also, the most importantly, gender issues, how women will be uplifted when she's able to come into power come December 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Nee, quite generally about the quality of the speech.
Yeah, no, the speech was great. I love the And for me, one thing that stood out to me was, I don't know, maybe it's from her team, which I think was very good on their part, is the fiery nature of the speech. I don't know what advice she got. It was like, I'm coming to you, I'm talking to you. And I really like that. I, I've not seen, I didn't know her to be that way, to be frank, but this was very, I'm in your face, this is me, I'm here, I'm ready for the fight. And I loved it. She's like, I want all the hits, give it to me. And I like it. Everybody was getting theirs, and that was great. Yeah, so I loved it. Yep.
Yeah. In America, we say, you want the smoke. Yes. But yeah, I absolutely agree. The overall quality of the speech was intact. And for me, I think in the past, right, and a lot of people have commented on this in the past, I think we've been carried away by Baumia's credentials as an economist, and so I would say over the past or over the period that Baumia has been in the political scene, there's been this notion that a vice presidential candidate has to be an economist, right? And so when Prof. Nana came into the scene, I think somehow they didn't allow her express herself, to use her own qualities to lead her campaign, so to speak. And then Zita, you touched on that, the fact that somehow her expertise is becoming evident. And I think leading with her strength is the way forward with respect to complementing JM on the ticket, right? And so in this particular speech, I agree that you could see her as a person in the speech that was delivered, right? It wasn't one of those speeches that was written by, handlers to satisfy a certain talking point. It essentially, that speech belonged to her. You could see her speaking, right? So I think, yeah, overall the quality was excellent, and the fiery nature of the speech, and it got a lot of people talking, right? And that's what political speeches are supposed to do. They're supposed to get people talking. And so, but then let's go to the very specifics of the speech, and then Zita, you may have already mentioned some of them, but if you want to go down that path, talk about the things that were the highlight of the speech for you, and then if we can dig deep into those.
Sure, and also it's important that she got the women extremely happy. Some of us are on social media, and so we are looking at the impact on, of course, on the younger generation of women. And anybody who has been on social media this whole week will see this energy of women being excited about this speech, and just being excited that she is a woman, and she's standing in power, and she's speaking boldly. And so again, that is a sort of win for women as a collective, and just the way most people were happy about her delivery, and how her delivery, even though it was full of grace, it was also assertive. And so I just wanted to mention that most of the women across Ghana were extremely happy, and she is some sort of a positive role model to the Ghanaian women, and that's one of the positive sentiments that I gathered on the streets of social media this past week. But yeah, I wrote multiple things, but I'm guessing because today we're quite a small panel, I'll be able to come back and touch on a few things. But I think her talking about the issue. Okay, first of all, I don't know if I should go and emphasize the issue of gender and women.
Okay, specifically, I'm going to come to that. That it's going to be a topic of its own. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that is my very first thing, but then I'm going to leave that and emphasize on the political elitism. I think that is something that is integral to Ghana's politics, and that there are a group of people who feel that Ghana is theirs, and this feeling of some groups not feeling like they are Ghanaian enough. And so I like the fact that she touched on it, and it is something that I hope that when the NDC come into power, they would continuously work on creating this sort of cohesion and togetherness among Ghanaians, because it's very prevalent when you look at political circles, and it's just all about people of a certain social standing, and people from these particular groups are heard more, and their views are seen as the views of the dominant group, whilst other groups are treated like they are not Ghanaians and that they do not count. And we saw that in the voter suppression in the Volta region, and we also saw that in President Nana Akufo-Addo's demeanor when he went to the Volta region during the whole water displacement. His demeanor, his countenance, and his speech was overall very dismissive of the people in the Volta region. So I'm glad that she touched on that. And these are sentiments that as we begin to have these discussions, I hope whoever becomes president will focus on more cohesiveness and also pay attention to other groups that are perceived as not part of the dominant group. So for me, that is one of the key things that she touched on that I was like, where to go, because elitism, ethnocentric elitism is problematic to Ghana's political space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, go ahead, Nee. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. And one of my key takeaways, right, from the speech was what she talked about. Making history is gratifying, but what really matters is to be the first. It's not to be the first through the door. What matters is to hold the door open for those behind us and create other avenues of self-actualization for many more. And she's probably she's gonna be the first woman vice president, like the first woman to hold such an office. And for me, that statement is profound because I've been the first black person in a lot of groups, and or a lot of for being given a lot of opportunities. And such a statement relates to me because you're like, you want to do the best work or job as possible, so that it will be like, you're not going to be the first black person in this room or in this position or whatever. So I related so much to that. And also for me, it's not like I don't trust these politicians, but I really wanted to, or I want to trust somebody. And if you look at this ticket, the Mahama Jane ticket, she brings or reinforces I want to find the right word, but she reinforces something for me personally, some kind of trust. We trust our mothers in Ghana and stuff like that, but I feel that she brings some different level of trust, and I probably don't have the right words for what I'm trying to say, but for me, she adds a lot more to the ticket than people give her credit for, and I really like that.
Yeah. I guess I mean, maybe you may
Is
say
the word
she's.
integrity? Is it integrity that you are looking for, or integrity?
So I didn't want to say integrity, but so that it would be like John Mahama don't have integrity. I feel, as Mahama said, like prosperity, will be good to him, and it's true, right? Now people really believe John Mahama more than they did when we had election in 2016 and even 2020, because they realized the impact of the job he's done. So I feel he's gained a lot of credibility and integrity. I mean, among some Ghanaians. For Jay, I kind of trust her. I'm more pushed to give her trust because of maybe her past work and everything she's done so far. So I'm struggling to find the right word.
I think
there's something there that that it's really good with the combination of them.
Yeah, I think I'm getting what you're saying. I mean, it might be something along the lines of a renewal of trust, right?
Right.
Over the years, we have very good reason not to trust politicians, not to take their word for it. And we have a very glaring example at this moment in Ghana's politics, right? He whose name must not be mentioned, but we all know who he is, right? And so, having Prof. Jane, deliver a speech straight out of her heart, I can see that speech actually being able to renew people's trust in politicians, right? And she doesn't really appeal to us as though she is the conventional career politician who would just come and say things for saying them sake or for saying them to get elected, right? She appeared very genuine in that sense, and so you are very likely to trust in somebody like that compared to the line of politicians that we have had in who have occupied Ghana's political space in past times. So I definitely get where you are driving at, and I think that's the advantage of her being on the ticket, right? And but again, specifically on the speech, right?
And,
Yes,
Chairman, host Agana, please. I was when I was in UCC, and I know this will give away my age, but I was in UCC 2008 to 2012.
why do you want to hide your age?
Yeah, she was a VC there, so please allow me to talk about that in sometime in the show. So I'm just letting you know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come to her record, and maybe
Okay.
at that point you can tie in her.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I went to Legon, so I wouldn't have much contribution, but I see where he's going with that.
Yeah.
He can have a field and brag about, his, past institutional alumni or whatever they call it. So,
But-
you can have that reign. Anybody knows where did Muhammad, guys? I'm not trying to come out of, but which institution did Muhammad go
Mama
again?
went to Legon.
Legon, yeah.
Oh, okay, then I have something to brag about too.
Yeah. He was a vandal, and I'm a vandal too. Yeah, he went to the city. We always say he went to the city. He didn't go to Legon. He went to the city. But yeah, anyway. So back to the speech. For instance, I have listened to some radio commentary, and some individuals in the opposition, MPP, and Nana Akomia, to be specific, quite in a very dismissive way, characterized her speech as poetry. And then he went like, oh, is that not her profession or something like that? Very, very dismissive in his characterization of the speech as poetry, and also, and it's a pattern. In fact, we have spoken about this before, that in 2020, when she was nominated, they then was he the majority leader at the time? Shea Mensah Bonsu made a comment that, oh, she's a professor of literature. What's she bringing on the table? And it makes me wonder that, do some of these leaders that we have understand the various discipline and what it takes to study something like literature, right? And again, this has come out with Akomia's comment. And I mean, I'm going to speak from my own understanding of various disciplines and perhaps what it might take, or what in the process of acquiring a higher degree in, for instance, literature, and being a professor of literature, what it may entail, and what knowledge you may have acquired along the way, right? And for instance, in order to write a novel or to even write poetry, you have to have a firm grasp of your society, its history, and its happenings, current happenings, as well as what the future may look like for that society. And so you have to be broadly read. And so to find leaders in Ghana dismissing certain disciplines and saying that perhaps somebody who studied those disciplines does not qualify to lead a country, in my opinion, is quite unfortunate, in fact. So I don't know if you guys have any additions to make, but I think our educational system needs a reorientation, and that might include, re-educating some of our leaders to understand the various disciplines and the types of knowledge that you may acquire in the process of gaining higher education in those disciplines. But in my opinion, you don't really have to be an economist or whatever may be the case to qualify to be a president or be competent enough to be a president.
Yeah, can I bite this one?
Yes.
So, and not just that, not just about being a professor of literature or whatever, but it's about we've all gone through the PhD process, right? I know all of us here has a PhD. Not saying, but the point is, going through the PhD process is really difficult. So if she's been able to go through that and been successful, and also she's a professor, going through after your PhD, getting the job, going through the ranks of an assistant professor, associate, and to the professor, he has to take work ethic, and that should also tell us that this woman is hardworking. She has the right work ethic to get to that level, and not only being having the work ethic, she's also being a vice chancellor, and I mean the first female vice chancellor, and you can correct me on that, of a university in Ghana. That means that, and when she was there, she made decisions, right? So she has a track record of making good decisions. Making good decisions doesn't mean you should only be an economist. I mean, we have Baumia, who is an economist. What has he done? What has he done? He's just talking here and there with no output. So I think she has the track record. She's shown that she's made brilliant decisions in the future, and she's going to make the same good decisions in the past. She's going to make those same decisions in the future. But for me, what excites me is that, and because of the way the system is in Ghana, I'm not surprised of the comment from the chairman, sir. Sometimes our men have this condescending attitude towards women, and that's why I really like this ticket. We are promoting women. Ghana will not move forward or to the level we want if we do not promote our women. Women are roughly 50% of the population, and you cannot put 50% of the population down and expect to rise. No. And that's why we need this ticket. We need this ticket to do so well. And again, it goes back to the statement, what she said. I'll make sure when I'm done, I'll not be the last person through this door, right? That means that it's a challenge for her, that she knows what she's up against, right? She knows that she's against the status quo. So I believe she's going to work hard. She has a track record for it, and I love this ticket because it represents everything, and I hope. And I mean, NDC wins so that we can see more of it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that you kind of made my point more even better, because you go into beyond her education and serving as the vice chancellor is a very big university in Ghana, and her record there as well. But yeah, Zita, if you want to touch on that issue as well, and what.
I'm surprised you beat me to it with that, and yeah. I think what Nana Kumia, and of course in the past what Chairman has said, we all need to be honest with ourselves. It is patriarchy and sexism. Ghana's political terrain is extremely sexist and patriarchal, and so they're trying to say that literature is a feminine course, and so you're not coming with any credibility. I'm sure if her PhD was in economics, they'll find something else. So we need to understand the level of antagonism that women, who enter the political space in Ghana face. If anybody's watching and they've been on TikTok, they would have heard of Dr. Z trending on Ghana. That is me. And why? People have disrespected me because they said, oh, her PhD in sociology. Sociology is nothing. And in the past 2 weeks in Ghana, it have been talks about sociology simply because of me, and simply because I said I have a doctorate in sociology. They said it is nothing. What is sociology? And just this whole thing of, if it's not engineering, and people have compared me, it should be engineering, pharmacy, medicine. You can't brag with sociology. So it is this whole thing, and it's just not in the political space, but within Ghana's culture, it is extremely patriarchal, and that women are kind of, always being put down in some sense. And so I agree with Nii that this is what makes this ticket a very solid one. And I would say that Nii women are not just 50%, we are 50.1. We are a bit more than men in Ghana. But in terms of representation, I was preparing some notes. Currently, in Ghana, they have 40 seats for women in parliament out of the 275. When I did my doctoral work, I did a historical trajectory of women in parliament up till now. And it's only grows by 8 and by 10 every other 4 years. So we have an issue of women being represented in the political space. But the reason why women don't do that is because of this hostile nature of Ghana's politics and these politics of insult and these politics of demeaning. Like Nee rightly said, this woman going through the PhD process, irrespective of whatever discipline, is extremely hard. And as a woman who has a doctorate, I have to say it, we do it at a greater sacrifice. Like we do it at a greater sacrifice of our biological clock, knowing that Ghana's culture define womanhood based on you being able to be married and you having a family. And so we do it at a greater sacrifice, and nobody should be downplayed for their credential. It indicates determination. It indicates perseverance. It indicates work ethics. And these are the transferable skills that Professor Nana Jane is going to bring on board. So I just wanted to say that this is just typical patriarchy and sexism in Ghana, and just a way to always demean women and make them feel out of space and make them feel like they have no contribution. And I hope and I pray she will win, because it is time for women to shine. And also, like I said, every woman in Ghana is, to a large extent, what I've seen on social media, is extremely happy, because we know what her win would be for us and the younger generation of women that are watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the fact that, she didn't quite lean into identity politics, right? She established a caveat that winning this election shouldn't be about breaking a certain record. And of course, if she wins, if the ticket wins, she would be the first, vice president in the history of Ghana. And that would be breaking the glass ceiling. But she was very clear in stating that that shouldn't be the objective of winning the election, but for the greater good, right? In terms, she looked at what the ticket was going to do when they win the election. It wasn't about breaking records or if you like, the tokenism that comes with some of these issues related with identity. She asserted her qualifications and the fact that when elected, she is going to work to make Ghana a better place for her citizens. And I think that was extremely important, right?
And I do appreciate her diplomacy, but I think that identity politics is important and cannot be delineated from the fact. We need to look at across all countries. Anytime is a woman on a particular ticket, it raises concern. So I understand her diplomacy and I understand her tactfulness, but I'll also say that for most of us, she is going to make history, and we need to see that history. And so it is okay even if she leans on that. Like I said, men have led for how many years? So if even she leans on identity politics, is it bad? That's the thing.
I guess my issue here is the fact that there's been a backlash, right, whereby critics of if you like DEI and those sorts of things say that they are putting square pegs in round holes, whichever the saying is, right, to suggest that women or people of color who occupy certain positions are only kept in those positions because they have to satisfy the DI conditions of, and I like the fact that she highlighted her credentials and what she was going to do for the people of Ghana if the ticket gets elected, even though we understand that she is going to break a glass ceiling. But I feel like she needed to demonstrate that. Right. And of course, usually if you're the first group of people to do something, you have to always excel beyond the ordinary, And so I like that. We know that in the background, her representation in that light is going to create more avenues, is opening doors for women in politics. But leading with that might give the critics some sort of fodder to lash on, right? And so that I just kind of like the tactfulness in the way she went about her speech. in
Yeah,
that
and
respect.
Chema Agana, if you allow me to add one
Yes,
more point.
yes,
Another thing which is important, going through her being a literature professor or going through that program to get a degree, what it tells me that she's somebody that can think on her feet, right? And sometimes being a vice president, you're going to be in meetings, crucial meetings where you have to make split second decision, and they are all important, right? I was on a Zoom call with her. I think the NDC Pro Forum USA organized a meeting with her. And for me, what impressed me, of course, she was my VC, so I shouldn't be surprised. But people were asking her questions and she was answering. And these were not questions like she knew ahead of time. Like it was right there. And I was like, yeah, of course, she has a PhD, she's smart. But I was impressed anyway, right? And that's what you need. So trying to just just say her degree is in literature, that's very condescending. Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, so let's get a little political here. What are the political implications of her selection as a running mate? Obviously, I mean, political parties make political calculations when selecting a political sort of a running mate or even the candidate himself. There's considerations of what the base that she's going to attract are. And so I would want you guys to speak to that. What do you think the political benefit is to the NDC with her selection as a running mate to JDM? So I mean, Zita, you can go with it, and then yeah.
Yeah, it ties back to what I was saying. I think political base, like women representation, like that is so important. And I know that Agana, you and me, you are men, so you will not understand the gravity of how we feel seeing a woman. That is the statement in itself, and that is what will propel, the NDC, because I am on the grassroots level on social media with almost 100,000 followers. This whole week I've cleared my schedule. I was just after her speech. Oh, it was crazy. Just the women are stitching her and say, "Oh my God, this is amazing. Our daughters have somebody to look up to." And this whole week the statement has been sanitizing. They feel like we've sanitized social media with her speech, with what she represents, as a highly educated woman with a great track record that is there. And so politically, you and Nee might be men, but that is what is like the pull factor for most of us, irrespective of people's ethnicity. That has been like more of the consensus that I'm hearing, that it's a woman and she has credibility and she's just standing in her power and she's speaking. Again, I know you don't want to hear that, but before she started her speech, she said Atubam. She has this maternal vibe that is balancing things out. And I know most of you are men, but the energy that a woman brings to a dynamic in a space that is extremely patriarchal is different. It is warm, it is welcoming. And I like the fact that she started with that for those of you who have welcomed me at Tubam, she gave me that warm feeling that you can trust her, and then you are around somebody who is trustworthy, because most of us, I'm sorry to say, you're men, but we go with our mothers all the time. Like, that's just it. Our fathers, we celebrate them. But if push comes to shove, we're all going with our mothers, because our mothers will always sacrifice for us and be there. So for me, when it comes to the political implications, I'm sorry to say it is mainly the gender part, looking at Ghana, because she's not the first vice president to have a PhD. We had Professor Atta Mills had a PhD. Bawumia has a failing PhD, but definitely a PhD. And so when we talk of academic credentials, she's not breaking the academic credentials, but she is breaking the gender barrier. And that is the political statement for me.
So is that going to attract votes? So because if you want to make it a gender game, is that going to be an advantage?
Of course, it is an advantage, but and it goes beyond to she has the credibility, like Ni has listed. So it's multiple factors coming together. But once we delineate the gender, and so she has the credibility, she has the ability to critically think, provide solutions, whilst give solutions immediately, or thinking on her feet and all that, then we are not looking at it in a holistic sense. And so from a more political base, the gender is extremely important. But again, it's not just gender. You can't just put any woman there, but a woman with a proven record, a woman with integrity, a woman who is now standing in her power and owning this position and saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not making you, I'm not coming here to, when it is time for reckoning, I'm not going to say I'm a driver's mate. I will rise up and take responsibility for the leadership that I am part of. And so those are the things. And so for me, it's attracting, she's won my vote mainly because I'm all for women empowerment. My doctoral work was on girls' education, so my entire body of work is towards women empowerment. I mean, she's won my vote. It's amazing, and I think she has the credibility to do the work as well. I think so.
Okay, so Ni, you were a student when she was the vice chancellor, right?
Yes.
And my understanding is that she was quite a disciplinarian, right? she won't, let you guys have your way.
Yeah, and
so, yeah, but would that be an advantage in winning younger voters, or is going to turn them off? Because growing up, we don't tend to like disciplinarians a lot, right? So I don't know if that's a base that she would cover, having been in touch with students and younger folks.
Let me tell you, if Ghanaians want the best thing for the country moving forward, she's actually the right person at the right time. Ghana, we are going through a lot of financial problems. We are going through, with the money is not there. So we need somebody who is very disciplined, who has the integrity to follow through. And if you ask me, she has all the qualities. You need somebody like that who is very strict, who will make sure what the funds need to be used for is done. That is what we are supposed to do, right? And for me, I know, and I hope she's thinking about the presidency as well. I hope she's doing that, because somebody like me, I've seen men being president in Ghana for forever, and we've not gotten it right. To be frank, we've not gotten it right.
I get it, but let's not jump the gun, because I want us to stick to the political advantage.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, I hope she's thinking about that. But at the end of the day, I feel the advantage she has, or what she brings to the ticket. Trust me, is the integrity she has. That we know, if she says this is what we are going to do, she's going to get it done. And I think that will be very helpful to the NDC going forward. Again, the gender thing is there, but also if you look at the politics for NDC, there are other advantages as well. Mama, we know, is from the north. Prof is from the south, so that's also an advantage, right? And again, you want to be able to satisfy everybody. Again, politics is numbers. So if the Mama has the north covered, we need somebody that can cover the south, and I think she does that. And one of the main reasons why I think, in my opinion, why Bawumia has not announced a running mate is because he knows the problem if he announces a male ticket. And I think that's what is delaying the decision, because they've really done the analysis and they've seen that if they come with a male ticket, it's going to be a landslide for NDC. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be a landslide anyway, because what they've done, they've done worse than any government, and it should be a landslide anyway. But I'm saying they've done the analysis and they've realized that the advantage Prof adds to the ticket, and that's why it's taking them long. So I think she adds a lot to the ticket. Yeah.
Okay. So, but the youth aspect, I don't know, what is your take on that? Again, you experienced her as an authority figure when you were a student.
Yeah.
Do you think she is endearing to younger folks? I mean, what's your take on that?
For me, I think the youth right now, we are fed up. We just need things to work. And that is what we need right now. So if she's the one that's going to make the thing work, hey, I'm all for it. And let me tell you, I was her baby when I was in UCC. And again, people may guess my age, but it's okay. 2008 to 2012. This woman made our processes for registration better. There was when I got in first year, we had a lot of problems with registration certain courses. I think if you don't register early enough, you won't get something. But and so there was a long queue during registration, long queue. And she came in and she changed the processes. And now you don't need to worry about registration. You can do registration with less stress. So again, we need somebody who will make the thing work. I don't care who. If it's Prof, I'm happy because again, I'm part of the men who want to push the women agenda this time because it's not work for us as men. So yes, I want to push a woman like Prof. And who better than a woman who has a PhD, who's been a VC, who's been an education minister? Who else than Prof? I don't think. Last time I made a comment on Twitter, I think, to be frank, she's actually the most qualified vice president we are going to get. And trust me, we had a PhD before, but when Mills came in, Mills was not an education minister, so she has that over Mills, even though they both has a PhD, right? So she's probably the most qualified vice presidential candidate we have, and she's a woman. So hey, I'm all for it. I think she's going to do great. And aside making our processes better, when I was in UCC, I always see things, buildings coming up every day. We got buildings for they put up what they call the Center for Education. Let me check. They call it Center for Continuing Education. It was a huge building, and that had a lot of buildings for that program, right? And not just that. And even in that building, they had what they call the online whatever. They have some rooms for online education. So in 2015, when they put up that building, she was ahead of her time, thinking about now that online education is common. This woman was ahead of her time, thinking about how to make online education better. And not just that, they put out a lot of projects. Like there was one project close to the Snit area. It was called the Clubhouse, and restaurant for the staff and other things. So trust me, for me, I'm really excited because I've seen her work firsthand as a student, making my life better with registration and also making sure the university was run perfectly. And so yeah, for me, I think if we really want the job to be done, I think it's her. Trust me, it's her.
Yeah. You actually drew my mind to it because talking about qualifications, right? Being the vice chancellor of a university is a big deal, right? A university as big as University of Cape Coast is a big deal. And I think that aspect of her experience is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Right. And it's very important that you highlighted it because I mean you are dealing with predominantly students who are like just gotten out of their parents' homes and they now have this freedom that they want to leave. I mean, I remember my first year in Legon and the turmoil that went on there in terms of water problems on campus, all kinds of issues. And having her run a university like that, basically that's a miniature country, right? If you're able to deal with all the moving parts of a university system, I don't think there's any other qualification more important than that to be.
And again, trust me, she left the university better than she came to meet. And I promise you, I'm not saying that because I'm pro NDC. I'm not saying that because I'm saying that because that's the truth. She left the university better than she came to meet it. And that's all we want, right? We want her to meet, to leave Ghana in a better spot than she came to meet it. Of course, we need that person right now because the mess this MPP guys have put us through. So we need somebody who can pick us from this valley these people have put us through and bring us out of the hole.
Yeah. All right. I mean, Zita, if you have any additions in that direction, I mean, Ni has led us into the record, and so we can just go down that path. Yeah.
Yes, Ni has gone
He's fired
around
up.
and yeah, he's fired up. And again, he has he was a student under Professor Nana, so he's better positioned to speak on these things because he's been able to have that encounter with her in terms of experience, her leadership, and so he's best poised to speak on those things. But I just wanted to say that in terms of the youth, we need to understand that there's a growing nature of a different kind of youth. I think there's a more progressive thinking in the Ghanaian space when it comes to young people. And so a lot of Ghanaians are frustrated because of the failure of the Akufo-Addo government and the Bawumia government. Those duo has really instilled a lot of disappointment in the youth, and so the youth are looking for change. And so when you talk about how attractive she is to the youth, I think she positions herself well. And again, you might think I'm overplaying gender, but that concept of we trust our mothers and it is really going to work in her favor, because the young people are frustrated, and at the end of the day, when you're frustrated and you go home, you seek comfort with your mother, you don't seek comfort with your father. And so I feel like she would appeal to the youth quite well. Not everyone, but I think the broader base of Ghanaian youth that are very progressive in their thinking, and most importantly, they are looking at ideas and looking at track record. I think she would appeal to those people, and her political attraction, or what she will bring to the table for the NDC is quite strong. So we shouldn't downplay that. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. All right. So okay, we'll come to the gender question and also tie in with the driver's mate comment. So I would like our producer to play the full video for us, and then we can delve into that conversation.
Entrepreneurs must have access to capital for the entire sector to boost their businesses. And that is why we will actively pursue the establishment of a Women's Development Bank to primarily nurture and grow women-led businesses. Women must become millionaires too, shouldn't we? We must become millionaires too through hard work, as our men do. We do not need hands out. We need hands up. Women of Ghana are capable of managing that bank 100%. The bank must take care of small-scale businesses or tiny-scale businesses to give them credit. And I'm talking about those who are hawking or people whose businesses do not depend on huge capital. I envisage this board made up of trading associations and cooperatives, and all these fully represented and making serious decisions and being accountable to its members. And I into me. Hello, Wanye. And the world knows what we do with our resources when women prosper. We hardly leave our children behind. We hardly leave the wider families, including the men, behind. There is better stability at home. There's better peace at home. Most will demand less job money, so the girls should clap for us.
All right. So, I mean, that, commentary right there, that is a very loaded one. It has so many dimensions, right? I mean, first of all, she makes a commitment to pursuing or pushing, women's rights and things that would make the lives of women better. They don't want handouts, right? She's making promises. But we already have an individual in Ghana's political space who made a lot of promises, and his feet is being held to the fire as we speak. And so is she treading on dangerous ground by making promises, or you think that this is something that is straight out of the hat and that she would keep that promise, right? And that tomorrow she's not going to come back and tell us that I wasn't in charge of the wheel, but I was just a driver's mate. What do you guys think? Should she be making promises of this nature? Zita?
Yes, yes, yes. I believe she needs to be making, and it's not, you see, the difference between Professor Nana and Jane and Baumia is the fact that she's not making a promise to incite people and get votes.
Yeah.
She's making a promise based on what data. She's not wrong. Have you looked at the Ghana Living Standard Survey? I have looked at the 2019 reports. That was the latest report I could find online. And women, even though more Ghanaian women have a lower education compared to men, more women are income contributing earners in the home. They work in the markets. More of our mothers in the informal sector. Go and look at it sector by sector, even in agriculture. I was looking at go look at 2019 Ghana Living Standard Survey. Even in agriculture, women were leading because they were the ones selling. They were the ones contributing income. So they broke it up sector by sector. This makes me know that this woman is making promises based on data, based on reviewing information that exists there, not because she's trying to incite people to get vote. And so she's right when she talks about having a particular credit bank that supports women, because more women, even though they are less educated, even though more women in Ghana are less educated than men, more women are income contributing family members compared to men. And so when women are empowered, it trickles back to the home, and the home and the family is the, again, fundamental unit of every society. And so if it's difficult at the family level, social vices will increase and there'll be more problems in the society. So she's spot on with her promise. It is not a promise that I believe she cannot keep. She has looked at the existing data and she does understand that women contribute more income at home compared to men. And people who think that I'm lying, go look at the 2019 Ghana Living Standard Survey report, which is online. So it is spot on, and that is why she would appeal to somebody like me, because I know the data, I am reading the reports, and I know that empowering a woman, empowering our market women will trickle down to the home, and that will create a safer society. Because when people are struggling at home, it leads to more crime and things that will be going on wrongly in the country. So I don't think it's a promise she cannot keep, because she is not saying it. She's not doing like, 1 million, one constituency, every district. No, yes, she's not, because those people, I don't know if it is. Yeah, exactly. You just say anything and people were happy on that, but did they look at the data? Did they look at existing resources? Where were they going to get the money to be able to have given every constituency one dam, one district, one dam, one constituency, 1 million? Like, did they look at that? They didn't. But she is speaking from an informed place.
It was one village, one dam.
One village, one dam, not even one district. Imagine. No. That is even worse.
No, I know, it was one village, one factory.
One village, one factory.
Yeah.
So MPPs are confusing. One village, one factory. Every district dam, one dam, and then every constituency.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And the question is, how did they come to that? And did they look at the data? Yeah. And did they look at how sources of funds, where were they going to generate the funds to do that? Empty promises, they eat and they sleep, whatever, to keep the masses, going. And they said that and they couldn't do it. But I believe Professor Nana looked at the data before making that promise and understood the impact of women's financial empowerment can have in the home.
Yeah. So what Zita is saying is that not all promises are equal, right? Some are very empty and essentially just to buy votes, and others are more realistic based on the data sets. And so we should be able to make that distinction, right? And that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chamagana, the truth is, and whatever she said is true. When women are better financially, the house is better. When men are the only people bringing money at home, what usually it leads to is, sometimes it leads to abuse. I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes it leads to abuse because the women don't have the financial capability to get out of abusive relationship. So again, women are 50%, but most of them, we know in Ghana, most of women take care of the children. So if the women are better, what happens is that there's a lot of protection for not only the women but also the children, because you want women to be able to live abusive relationship if that's the case, right? And that's true. But the other thing is, if she's actually able to fulfill this promise, again, this sets her right to what I'm saying. I want her to look at the presidency. So if she's able to succeed in this, trying to bring benefit and kind of advancement towards women, and I think she'll be the right person going forward if we want a woman to be president. Because trust me, we need our women to do better, and this is one way of getting to that point, right? We need to give women loans and entrepreneurs loans and stuff like that with better terms, right? And I think that will be the focus of such a bank, right? Trying to give better loans with better terms to some of our women who are, trust me, this market women, they have money and they do a lot for our economy. So why not help this woman, right? And I think a great move. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, just looking at her body language, I don't think she is going to be the kind of person that would come out one day and say, "Oh, I gave the right advice, but I wasn't listened to." She spoke with passion, and I think it's something that she wants to make one of her core goals once the ticket wins the election. And I'm sure she's going to insist that, look, I promised the people this, and this is not beyond our achievement, and so we need to get it done. And then also going by Nee's, if you like, recollection of her record back at UCC, it doesn't look like she's the kind of person that would take no for an answer, especially if that no is going to do a lot of damage to her integrity, right? So again, I think I can agree with you in terms of it not being a lofty promise, but based on existing data, and it's something that can be achieved. And I also want to say, maybe perhaps the focus shouldn't necessarily be on the bank per se, but if she comes into power and she's able to make credit accessible to women, right? Because that's the end goal of the bank, right? So it must not necessarily be a physical bank or whatever may be the case, but makes it easy for women to access credit, to be able to carry out, put their entrepreneurial ideas into practice. She would have fulfilled that promise. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you guys on that.
And
But
Yes.
I think that no, I think that a specific bank should, the way she called Women's Development Bank is the right goal. It's all about
Okay.
sustainability and long term. Let
Yeah.
us remember that when people leave office, then different government takes over, things change. So I think she's looking about a sustainable plan and a sustainable policy that will seek to serve women. And again, the way women's especially in the informal sector, the way their business works is different, and different rules need to be created around credit for women who peddle in such businesses, trade different forms of trade. So I think that she's spot on with having a women's development bank that will specifically target women in the informal sector and have lines of credit for them so they are empowered and positioned well to give back to their family. So I don't think, because if it's credit, we already have a lot of credit systems in Ghana, right? But it's all about, she's thinking longevity. She's thinking about a proven record, something that should be remembered for, just like the way we remember President Mahama for very unique things. I think that it is something that she will be remembered for in posterity. So I think it is spot on, and I agree with that. A women's development plan for the women in Ghana. I like that idea.
Okay. All right. I don't know if Nee has anything. Do you have anything to add to that?
no,
But
no, what I just want to add is on the lighter side, and I think we've not spoken about that, but she was looking beautiful. I like her dress.
yeah,
The dress was nice with a shoulder thing, and I think that was a good touch to that too. Yeah.
okay, that's good. I mean, yeah, good presentation is nice. So, but let's go to her record, because I've seen MPP commentary on this, and some people have brought up certain things that they claim to be her record while she was a minister for education, right? For instance, they talked about the cancellation of the teacher trainee allowance, and so I think that's what comes to the top of my mind. And I think there was something related to feeding grants, which for that I can dismiss it because that's a perennial problem. Every government has encountered delays in feeding grants, and so I mean we don't even want to go into that, considering the status of the free education now. But I think the prevailing issue about her so-called, if you want to call it a bad record, is the idea that she foresaw the cancellation of the teacher trainee allowance. And so I don't know if you guys have a response to that, and how do you dismiss such a claim? I mean, Nee or either of you can go for it.
Yeah, okay. So for me, what I know is that when she during her tenure as the Minister of Education, a couple of things happened, right? She headed the idea of upgrading some of the colleges of education into full-fledged tertiary institutions, and also we know some of the polytechnics were also converted into technical universities, which are all great moves, right? And at the end of the day, if that has been done, then the allowances which were paid to students of these institutions, which actually limited the number of students that could enroll because they had some caps of students they could enroll. What happened was that now they replaced the allowance with loans.
Yeah.
Because that's what university students get, right? Because I'm sorry.
Neil's son is in the background. That's fine,
So that's what I got a loan
Yeah.
as a student, right? So that's what the university student get. So at the end of the day, when the allowances were cut, it was replaced with a loan. And what actually that did was that it allowed a lot of enrollment, because now you don't have the cap on the enrollment, and that helped everybody. I mean, MPP talk about high number of enrollment when they talk about free SHS, and this also increased enrollment. So I don't understand why they think it's a bad move. And of course, when they came, they are not even able to pay these allowances. So I don't understand what their argument is. I actually feel it's a more sustainable approach. And again, as a country, we should be willing and pushing for policies which are more sustainable, right? Why should university students get loans and some other group of students get allowances, right? It doesn't help anybody. And if these loans is actually helping more people to have access to education, why are we speaking against it? And of course, you came and you were able to pay. So what's the argument?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Zita, do you have anything to add on that so-called record?
Yeah, I am not extremely conversant with that, but one thing I also want to say to rebuttal what the MPP were saying under her leadership is the fact that we've seen a lot of mass exodus of nurses from Ghana to the UK under the MPP's reign. We need more of those health professionals, but they left. We have seen disgruntled national service personnel not receiving their allowance, not just this year, but for the past 3 years. There has been a pattern where national service personnel have not received, their allowances and all that. So I think that nitpicking on something that happened regarding, teacher trainee allowance, I think that is just another way to dent her image. And I don't think it will really hold water. Because if we really want to zoom in on the different forms of, resentment among different sectors, teachers, nurses, and national service personnel in Ghana, I think MPP will be guilty. So they need to tread cautiously with nitpicking on some of these things that are, yes, she was in charge, but not everything is within her scope. Sometimes when you're overseeing stuff, there are things that could go different ways, and it's about how you resolve it. But we've consistently seen under the MPP's government how, national service personnel have not been paid. A couple of weeks ago, they are protesting and they've not been paid. And it's not just this year, it's happened in the previous years, the past 3 years, every year, national service personnel were struggling. Imagine that national service personnel taking 700 and something cities in this economy. I mean, come on. And we've had a mass exodus of nurses from Ghana. I personally know people who were nurses, and now all of them are in the UK. But we know that Ghana's health sector need more health professionals. But because of the poor, deplorable systems in Ghana, all our professionals are leaving the country. So I think the MPP needs to focus on those things than to nitpick to just score some political points.
Yeah. Anyway, like talking about national service allowance, I remember my national service allowance was 1.250. That was 125 Ghana cedi, right? And at the time, the dollar to cedi exchange rate was probably around 1 to 1. That was around the period of when did they do the redenomination?
Kufuor's era.
Yeah, I guess it was around that
the
time.
end of Kufuor's era.
Yeah, I did my national service in 2007, right? And this was the exchange rate around that time, and we were taking 1.250. And then you say currently these national service personnel take what? 700?
720, yeah.
So, and the exchange rate is almost twice of that amount, right? Like it's about $14 or something like that. So
cool.
If you look at it, they are getting 50% less than we got when we were doing national service.
To a large extent.
And on top of that, they are actually not paid in time, right? But, we can reserve this national service conversation for another day. But coming back to the teacher trainee allowance thing, I mean, I guess there are certain things that are always as a result of structural changes, right? In fact, when we were in Legon, there were stories of how there were demonstrations because students said they were being fed chicken and rice. Because at this time, university students were fed 3 times a day. And I remember there was one time one of our professors in class made fun of us and said when they were students here, the inner rooms that we are fighting over, right? In Legon, there were inner rooms, right? And he said the inner rooms that you're fighting over, those were balconies when we were students. And then we would have our dinner and then come out there and take fresh air with a toothpick, taking the meat out of our teeth after being fed in the dining hall. So these were the conditions in those days in the universities. They were being fed. The living conditions were not as they were when we were there. But the country had to move on. Reality set in, and students eventually had to pay their own tuition and feed themselves. But so I think the teacher trainee allowance was one of those things where, the time had come where students had to bear I don't know what is in terms of being fee payment and all. I don't know the details of that. But I think they had to get to a point where you didn't have to give students allowance to go to teacher trainee college, right? And even that, they said the certificates were upgraded. They were no longer the diplomas that were awarded at the end of the education, right? And so it was a higher certificate, right? So, I mean, I think those were structural, but I mean, to think that that's the only thing they can latch on to say that she didn't achieve during her tenure as education minister I don't think it's a big deal.
And Chairman, the actually the funny thing, right? So, and I'm not cutting you yet. What is MPP's biggest achievement? Free SHS. That's their biggest achievement. And under whose tenure there was the progressive free SHS? It was Professor Jane. She introduced the progressive free SHS in 2015, and which helped a lot of poor people. So this policy was the seed of the free SHS program. And the idea of the policy, of course, is to make, target the poor, help some of the poor families, which made so the idea is to some fees such as the examination fees, library fees, some fees of the education were removed for a certain, almost like 5,000 students, right? 500,000 poor students. So this policy, I could say they actually copied from Nanado got the idea from this woman, because under her tenure, this policy was implemented. So I don't know if that's why they're actually afraid of her, because they stole a policy this good from her. And I think that's the whole idea of trying to put her down, because they stole the policy from her.
Okay. So, but I mean, given that her background is education, she professor for so many years, vice chancellor, education minister, right? What now? I mean, and I would wonder, because we are in the education space here, right? And so we are passionate about education. So without knowing, I haven't really heard her policy in terms of what she's going to do in that space. But let's assume that we were being asked to recommend any policy. What do you think is the issue with Ghana's education now? And for instance, if you were speaking to her directly, because I saw a video today. In fact, somebody I know made a video about education in Ghana, and she was talking about the fact that they are spending money in painting schools. In fact, there was a picture going around where one of those schools and sheds was also painted, because apparently there's this government policy of painting schools all over the place. And she made a very passionate video about the current conditions of education infrastructure, mostly in the rural areas in Ghana. And she was quite emotional about it. I tried to upload a video, but I couldn't. But I would have played it, and then that would have set us off. But what would be your position on education, especially having somebody who is that would be her playground? What would you recommend? Right? Yeah.
I think she touched on education in her speech.
Okay.
She tied it to the 24-hour economy. And so if you listen to her, she specifically talked about reforming the education sector, specifically technical and vocational training institutes needs to be reformed to align with the 24-hour economy, so that people can be able to participate and have a wider scope for the young people to be gainfully employed. And so she did touch on that about educational reform, specifically for the vocational and technical institutes. But as somebody whose doctoral work looked at education, I mean, she and I can sit down and have a chat for days on Ghana's education system. But if there is any advice that I would give, I would say that I know 4 years is not enough, but I would say that Ghana's education system needs to change, especially from the senior secondary level to the university. Instead of the typical exam, I think we need to put students in groups and give them assignments, like, create something, invent something. It could be on a topic to explore and present on and offer solutions. I think that builds the intellectual capacity for students to develop critical thinking, because some of us had to come to Canada to be able to develop that, to be able to read material and critically think on it and pick up parts that needs to be further interrogated and offer solutions. And so if there's anything, we need to get rid of the cram and pass, memorize and pass system, and just be able to put students in groups and see those who emerge as natural leaders. Even though we can still maintain the examination system, we need to create a hybrid where it's not overly relying on students passing a specific exam, but putting them in groups and allowing them to solve a problem, present on a topic, and that can go towards their final exam. They can still maintain the exam part, but hybrid, create a space where people can develop critical thinking. At the university level, I think that the system needs to be overhauled. For instance, when I was studying sociology at the University of Ghana, I never learned that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is perceived as a post-colonial sociologist or contributor to sociology. It was when I was teaching in Canada for the first time in 2018, the textbook I was using to teach my first year sociology course, I read through and they said non-Western contributors, and Kwame Nkrumah was the first. And I'm like, I did not even see Kwame Nkrumah as somebody who contributed to the discipline of sociology, and I am learning it in Canada and not in in Ghana. And so we need to understand that the curriculum needs to be revised. The old European theorists are good to understand the foundation of, for instance, sociology for discipline. But I think we need to read more on the contributions of our own, of the Dubois, of the Nkrumahs.
Decolonize education, right?
Yes, decolonize education, use the right word, exactly. I talk about that on my social media a lot, decolonize education, and also tie it to our immediate economy. You cannot go to University of Ghana, study agriculture, and you're in the bank working as a teller. We need to have knowledge application and, ability to apply knowledge. And that is the missing gap we have in Ghana. We don't have knowledge application, and we don't even produce knowledge. Let's be honest. The system doesn't allow people to do different forms of research to produce knowledge, much more to go to the next phase of knowledge production to knowledge application. So these are my the few things that are on top of my head. But if I could sit with her, we will go through my dissertation and I'll have more suggestions to offer. But I think she did touch on education in her.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole ball game. Yeah, Nee did some work on education recently on the free education thing. But before you come in, when Zita was speaking about like the rote method of education where students memorize and go write exam, there used to be this professor famous in Legon who would tell students that when your colleagues were dropping, where were you? He was famous for failing students, and so if you stayed in the class longer and exam came and you didn't perform well, and at the end of the semester you go like, okay, why did I get this grade? He would tell you when your colleagues were dropping, where were you? So he took pride in a few students actually passing his class. But I need your contribution towards education, and what would you say to her?
So to be frank, and I feel based on her experience and what she's already done, what I'm going to tell her, and probably I have one or two things to say, but what I'm going to tell her is that continue doing what you've done. Because when she was Minister of Education, she actually increased the capitation grant, which means more funding for basic schools, right? So she should continue with that, increase funding for this basic schools. She is actually the mother of free SHS. So try and find way to solve the problem of this free SHS. She's the mother. She introduced a policy. She was the first person to introduce it. So she should try and solve the problem with that policy. And when she was Minister of Education, she helped upgraded these colleges into universities, meaning what that means is that they'll get more funding. She helped put up infrastructure in all the big universities in Ghana. Legon got theirs, Tech got theirs, UCC got theirs, and she actually helped establish the Center of Biology and Infections, and that was actually helpful during COVID-19. Again, she was ahead of her time. So what I'm trying to say is, I could say one or two things to her, but I think this lady got her thing going. She knows what she wants. She's ahead of her time. And again, earlier on, I mentioned about the College of Education at UCC having online programs. That was way back, and now online programs are kind of everywhere. So I'm saying this lady is ahead of her time. So I'm just going to say, being a student in the Ghana education system, what I can say is, I think when I was a university student in Ghana, we didn't have evaluation system for our professors. I know the professors may probably fight her on that, and that goes to what Chairman you were saying. We need to, and here a student will evaluate you, and it may affect if you are doing something good, the student will say it. If you are doing something bad, the student will say it. But it looks like in Ghana, who are you as a student to evaluate your professor? So, but I feel they should find a way, and I'm talking about the university here, they should find a way to have some kind of evaluation system in there. I know that the male professors will fight her, but I think it's something that should be looked into. And also, these days, the world is becoming more data analytics and stuff like that. So, and IT. So if they could help these institutions to, help students to train in those areas. And I think there are a lot of ways to do that. But basically, uh, we should help the institutions keep
Yeah.
up with the trend that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, if I recollect, I think she mentioned something along those lines. Yeah. Yes. So our time is coming up, but there's a final video that I want our producer to play for us, and then it will take us to more of the political realm of this conversation.
Independent as to disregard the people who validate your
Okay.
existence.
I don't think the video started. It's playing from yeah.
Electoral Commission, I address you directly. It is in the national interest and in your own interest to make transparent what has been and is going on in your establishment. The truth will not be suppressed. You cannot be so independent as to disregard the people who validate your existence. It does not happen anywhere. Easy. A word to the wise is in Asen North.
Yeah. She spoke directly to the EC. And I think a couple of weeks ago, we had conversation about the conduct of the EC. And I'm happy that she highlighted it here as well. Without a transparent and, reliable election system, our democracy will come to nothing. And I think it was a good word of caution. I don't know what you guys think, but what's your take? You can take it.
No, and we have been saying that I love the nature of the speech because she touched on all the important sectors. And this election, the EC is trying to insert itself in a way that we don't want, right? EC should be careful on the tangents they are going because again, it's in their best interest that the election is free and fair. So whatever is going on with this missing election equipment, they should be careful. And I like that she touched on that. And as I said, I hope she keeps this fiery nature. I hope because it looks like the disadvantaged people will say against her is that a woman is soft, whatever. And I think this speech put to bed some of those concerns, but I hope she keeps it going. She fights because it's gonna be a tough battle, and I want her to be ready to with the gloves on to give punches. And I like that she gave one punch to the Electoral Commission. I think that's the right way to go. Call the spade a spade, call people out, and I think that's what she did. So I really like that part.
Yeah, Zita.
I definitely agree with Neil on that. I liked the fact that she spoke directly to the Electoral Commission to realize that a lot is at stake for the upcoming elections, and this whole issue of missing equipment and all that will not fly. And so I like the fact that she took an affirmative stand. For me, when it comes to this whole issue of the political implications, it's the fact that she spoke about accountability, that you are not independent. Okay. That responsible accountability is extremely important. And I like the fact that she centered that she is not above accountability, that when people bestow trust on you, you owe it to them to be accountable. And that is something that we have not seen the NPP do. And so that was the highlight for me. In as much as she touched on the Electoral Commission issue, for me, the central thing was about the accountability and how people in political office should not work as if they are above the law and they are not accountable to the people who voted them into power. And for me, that was extremely important. And I like the fact that she emphasized that.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up because, the speech was so loaded that it just has so many different issues that were brought up. And in fact, I quite remember the accountability bit, and I think I intended for us to talk about it, but, just by the sheer amount of content we that she gave in that speech. We probably it escaped me, but she specifically said that she and John are going to make sure that when they come into power, past indiscretions by political wielders of political power are going to be brought to book, right? They are not going to, play with kids' gloves when it comes to holding politicians accountable for their actions while in power. And I think that was a particularly telling moment, right? The fact that she was bold to call that out, because I've heard a narrative along the lines that politicians, even incoming politicians or incoming, wielders of power, usually are afraid to call out their predecessors or even hold them accountable because they themselves intend to commit the same crimes. So when they do that, they are essentially sabotaging their own fortunes, so to speak. So I like the fact that she stood on such a platform to really highlight that and say that they have made a commitment to hold people accountable. Look, time is not going to permit us to recall there's so many, indiscretions or malfeasances that have been committed by, members of the current government. I mean, and so if they really live up to this promise, I think, Ghana can only get better. But I like the fact that she brought that up, right? So, yeah.
And she specifically said that it is a promise, and that's the word she used. She specifically said that it's not a threat, it is a promise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's not.
I quote her verbatim. So it's important that she's centering accountability, and I also like the fact that she said it's a promise and not a threat, because you know how people will go with political witch hunting, but we know there's been a lot of indiscretion in the MPP government that it stinks. Like the level of malfeasance and gross corruption and just gross disregard for the ordinary Ghanaian, it's just baffling. So I'm hoping they win, and I hope she keeps this particular promise that it is not a threat, but they need to hold people accountable, because politicians are not above the law. Politicians owe it to us to make sure that whatever trust and responsibility we have put in them to govern us, they are doing it with integrity and with dignity. And so I like the fact that she said this is not a threat. We are not threatening the opposition party that this is what we are going to do when we come into power. It is a promise, and that we will make sure that those who have engaged in any form of indiscretion will be brought to book. I like that. And again, I like that posture, because she's asserting herself and creating some of individuality about who she is and how the kind of vice president she will be.
Yeah.
And the truth is, some people will vote for NDC because they want accountability. They want this current government to be accountable for whatever they are doing, because we all see the mess and everything that's going on, and somebody should be held accountable. So this promise, trust me, will get some people to vote for NDC, and I hope they do keep this promise. I mean, we recently saw that one of somebody that was responsible for Maslock was jailed, right? That is good. So we know a lot more mess has gone on in this government, and we want people to also face the law. I mean, return some of the money or the money, or go to jail. We want that. We want to see that, because trust me, corruption is why we are where we are as a country. So if there will be a way, and that's why it saddens me when I hear, sometimes Anas had a video out where these judges are taking goods and things as gifts, and not do what they are supposed to do, because the court system is the only system that can bring some kind of accountability in all this political process. And if you hear news of some of them doing certain things, it saddens me. But I hope and pray that we can at least get some accountability going, so that these politicians will know they cannot take the country for granted. If they do, trust me, if they don't do what they are supposed to do, the money that's meant for the funds that's meant for building roads will not be done. And we drive on these roads, it will cause road accident. We are going to die and needless death. The money that needs to go to the hospital to get our better equipment will not be used for that. And our parents, our siblings, we ourselves, we are going to die in an hospital because we don't have the right equipment. So this is not an MPP issue. It's a Ghana issue. We need accountability. And if NDC do come, and they also do continue this mess, we need somebody to hold them accountable, and
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah. So look, the actual fact, there's been a conception about the concept of democracy. I mean, people have come to perceive democracy as this thing that makes the franchise equal, whereby everyone has an opportunity to vote or participate. But the origin of democracy was for accountability. So at the very heart of democracy is the foremost, objective of democracy is accountability. So if you lose sight of that, and then you focus on the fact that every 4 years we hold elections to change power without concentrating on the accountability ideal of democracy, then you cannot characterize yourself as a democracy, right? So without accountability, you are not practicing democracy. Maybe we have to find a different name for that. But I think over the years, the justice element, the equality element of democracy has kind of overtaken its origin. And I don't want us to go into the details of the origin of democracy and how it came about and the purpose for which it came about. But just for short, without accountability, you cannot characterize your system of government as a democracy just by the mere fact that you hold elections and then everyone has the opportunity to exercise the franchise and then you switch from one party to another. That is not democracy. In fact, even if we're going to go by that definition, Ghana, we cannot say is a democracy because Saul happened, right? The people of Lepe, Santro Kofi, Apafu, what the other one was Lolobi, right? 4 communities were disenfranchised. As we speak today, they do not have a representation in parliament. And she said that in her speech. That is a huge sacrilege. Like that should never happen in a democracy, right? If that happens, in fact, the only alternative left is to hold the election one more time. You cannot leave out the whole people. That's just not. So again, if we want to go to the equality aspect, again, Ghana's democracy would suffer on the basis of what happened in the last election. And I think that word of caution to the Electoral Commission was in the right place. And I also think that the NDC as a political party has to take these issues seriously, right? The issue of these missing biometric equipment. And I've heard people say that it's possible that they could be used to register voters without the knowledge of the EC. And, if that happens, who knows, yeah, but I mean, I would like us to wrap up, if there are any closing remarks, if you guys have any things that you want to highlight before we call it a day. Yeah, that's up to you.
Yeah, for me, I just want to say, I know Prof. Jane is in the minority class when it comes to the politics. She's female, she's a woman, so she's minority. And so I know she has to be on her A game to be where she is today. I know she's very competent. I know she has the integrity. She brings a lot of goodwill to the ticket. And what I want to say to her is I pray for her because she will need it. She will need prayers. And I pray that whatever brought her, God brought her, whatever she believes in, I know she believes in God, but that God should order her steps and take her to where I think she needs to be. I feel she needs to be the vice president just for, if even if not for her policies, but for representation. I feel it's very important. And I hope she gets victory, NDC gets victory, and I wish her well. She doesn't know me, but I truly wish her well, 'cause I've been a big fan of her. Yeah,
Be careful invoking the name of God here, because
I
Zito
know.
is a former Christian.
No, 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 no. I'm a former Christian, but I'm tolerant of other people's beliefs. I mean, I would say I'm spiritual, not, because we have to decolonize Christianity as it is practiced in Ghana. But I definitely side with me. This is a win for all women. And so, in as much as I know our chairman at Ghana doesn't want to lean into the identity politics, I definitely agree that she is in the minority when it comes to being a woman in Ghana's political space. So a win for her would change history. A win for her is that every girl in Ghana can dream of someday holding such a level of such a high level of political office in Ghana, and we need that. We need that. It's about time. Men have been leading for so many years, and we've not seen anything. So it is our time, and she is the candidate. And I believe she and Mahama together is the best measure we can ever find to deliver us from this current sham. So for me, I wish her well. As a gender advocate and a feminist, I'm excited, I'm following, and if I could actually vote, I would definitely, without thinking about it, she will have my vote 100%, simply because I want women to win, and I want every girl child in Ghana to see what is possible if they also dare to dream.
All right. Well, lady and gentlemen, it's been a lovely conversation as usual. The time flies by so quickly whenever we engage. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us this evening. I want to give a special thank you to Benjamin Wayo Mahama, who is cross-posting our show on his platform. We thank him very much. And again, we invite you to join us again next week, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I think in Ghana time that would be like 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. I don't quite.
Yeah, 6 p.m. Yep.
6 p.m. Yeah, so 6 p.m. Ghana time. Join us to do justice to the trending or the topical issues in our dear country. So have a good rest of the evening and your weekend as well. Bye.
You let a yum 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 yum.